So I'm about to tell you about the coolest road trip I ever went on in my life, and it was with my dad, Bob Bauder, and Gray Baskerville. It was 1992. I had just graduated high school. I was getting ready to settle in just to work at the wheel shop for the summer, which I normally did. My dad calls me up to his office, and he says, "Hey, what are you doing next week?" And I said, "Well, I'm working." He says, "I want you to go on a road trip with me. We're going to take Chezoom to Good Guys Indy." I said, "Okay, what's the details?" He said, "Hey, listen, we're taking, Bob Bauder's going to follow us. Gray Baskerville's going to document the thing. And we're just going to make some stops at super shops and some other stops along the way." And I said, "Yeah, I'm in for sure." The plan was to drive Chezoom from Orange County and go across country and make a few stops at some of our customers and just prove to the world that my dad didn't build trailer queens, that he actually built drivers. And what we did was, it was basically Chezoom, and then me and my dad started out driving Chezoom, and then Bob Bauder and Gray Baskerville, we traded off, but we had a really cool OBS flame dually towing Griffey interior trailers. We were bringing it back east to return the trailer. So we took off, and from LA to Vegas is about 3.5, 4 hours. And that was a very important stop because that's where my grandmother lived, my dad's mom. And for any of you that you know about driving across country and stopping in Vegas at my grandma's house, you stop for cookies. My grandma loved to bake. She loved visitors. So it was very important that, especially like when Pete Peterson was driving the trucks cross country, you always stopped. If you're going through Vegas, you had to stop. So we pulled up to Vegas, and one thing I recall on the trip was this pre-digital cell phones, everybody having cameras and video recorders on their phone. But it was amazing to me that just driving this car down the highway, how many people had cameras or disposable cameras in their cars and just snapping pictures. And we stopped at a gas station in North Las Vegas down the street from my grandma's to fill up, and people swarmed this car, and it was really cool to see. And everybody had, it was just amazing, everybody had cameras and they were taking pictures of this car and asking questions, and that was really cool. So we stopped in there for cookies and grabbed some cookies for the road trip, and we were on our way, and we headed out of Vegas, working our way cross country. And I think one of our stops was somewhere in Utah at a Super Shops, and we stopped at Super Shops along the way, which was a big customer at the time. And we planned like these little meet and greets and open houses, and it was pretty cool. Gray would spend some time with my dad driving in Chezoom, and I'd spend some time with Bob, and we would just trade off. And we made a few stops. So we stopped at a few different locations, and mechanically the car did pretty good. I mean, there were some few adjustments, and there were some times we had to kind of fix a couple things, but nothing major. We get to Indy, Good Guys, and which used to be a cool show. And I remember Linda Vaughn was there and doing some interview stuff and photographs with the car. And I remember, I forget, it was either Saturday or Sunday, there was an opportunity for the participants to actually drive their vehicles around the Indy 500 track. And my dad says, "Hey, you know what? I'm busy. Why don't you take the car and go drive it around the track?" We took off, and one of the coolest memories I have is just driving Chezoom around the Indy 500 track. That was really, really amazing. It was a memorable trip, and out of that trip, I'm the last surviving member of that trip. The other three have passed away, unfortunately, and it was cool. It was a really good time, and it's something that I'll never forget, and it's something that, looking back now, so many years later, I just appreciate that whole experience, and just having that time to spend with Bob and Gray and on the road, and being 18 years old and hanging out with your dad. It's just kind of like one of those cool experiences that I will never ever forget. And it was a moment in history, in hot rodding history, that just I'm glad I'm a part of, and I'm really thankful for it.